Most people believe success is about luck, talent, or being at the right place at the right time. But let me share with you a truth that very few understand: success is often just one more step beyond the point where most people give up. It's not the mountain that defeats us, it's the pebble in our shoe, the irritation, the discouragement, the small daily struggles that make us stop climbing when we're closer to the top than we realize. Think about it. How many dreams have been buried not because they were impossible, but because the dreamer gave up too soon? A student who drops out just before graduation, an entrepreneur who closes his business just before it would have turned profitable, a writer who stops after rejection number 9, not knowing that acceptance would come at rejection number 10. Life has a strange way of testing us, and it often demands persistence right before the reward is given. I want you to picture a miner digging for gold. He works tirelessly, day after day, swinging his pickaxe into the earth, sweating, bleeding, exhausted. He believes the gold is there, but after months of no result, frustration grows. Finally, one day he throws his tools aside, convinced it was all for nothing. What he didn't know is that the gold vein was just 3 feet beyond where he stopped. And so another man comes along, digs just a little further, and reaps the reward. That story has been told countless times, and yet it's real for most of us. We stop just before success arrives. You see, success doesn't usually announce itself with fireworks or neon signs. It hides behind struggle, behind boredom, behind repeated failure. It waits to see, will you continue when nothing seems to be happening? Will you take one more step, one more try, one more day of faith when everything in you screams to quit? That's why so many people never achieve their goals. They think the struggle means failure, when in reality, struggle is proof that you are close. Just as the night is darkest before the dawn, success often comes right after the hardest season. If you can endure that last stretch, if you can resist the urge to quit when everything feels heavy, that is when you will experience the breakthrough most people never see. So, let me tell you this: if you've been fighting for a dream, and you feel tired, discouraged, and ready to quit, hold on. You might be 3 feet from gold. You might be one call away, one meeting away, one small effort away from the very success you've been chasing for years. Don't let frustration rob you of the future you deserve. The world is full of stories of people who almost made it, but decided to stop. Don't become another story of almost. Decide today that you will keep going, no matter what. Because the truth is simple: success belongs not to the smartest, not to the fastest, but to those who refuse to quit. Especially when quitting feels like the only option. Most people today live in a world of instant gratification. We want fast food, fast internet, fast results. And unfortunately, this same mindset slips into our pursuit of success. We think if results don't come in days, or weeks, or even a few months, then maybe it wasn't meant to be. But let me tell you something powerful: the expectation of instant success is one of the greatest killers of dreams. Think about the farmer who plants a seed. He waters it, nurtures it, protects it. Does the seed sprout into a full tree the next morning? Of course not. It stays hidden beneath the soil for weeks, even months, before breaking through. Most of the growth is invisible at first, roots spreading deep underground, preparing the plant to handle storms and bear fruit. Success works the same way. The roots of your efforts are growing even if you can't see them yet. The problem is, many people stop watering their dreams too soon because they don't see results right away. The truth is, every meaningful achievement demands patience. Jim Rohn used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Success is not about avoiding difficulty, it's about staying long enough in the game to grow into the person who can handle the success when it arrives. That takes time. Look around at the stories of great men and women who inspired generations. They weren't overnight sensations. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before inventing the light bulb. Colonel Sanders was rejected by over 1,000 restaurants before someone finally agreed to sell his chicken recipe. Imagine if they had quit halfway. You and I would never have heard their names. But because they refuse to surrender, their legacy shines today. Here's the dangerous trap most people fall into: they compare their chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. They see the highlight reels of successful people on social media and think, why am I not there yet? Maybe I should quit. But what they don't see are the sleepless nights, the struggles, the failures, the years of effort behind that overnight success. And here's the lesson: success requires consistency long before it delivers results. You must be willing to keep going, even when the applause hasn't come, even when nobody notices, even when progress feels painfully slow. Because every day you persist, you're building character, discipline, and resilience, the very qualities success demands. So, ask yourself, are you willing to be patient enough? Or will you let the illusion of instant success rob you of the rewards waiting on the other side of perseverance? Remember this: greatness takes time. The oak tree does not grow in a day. Neither will your dream. But if you stay, if you keep watering, if you keep believing, the day will come when the roots break through, and the world will finally see what you've been building all along. One of the biggest reasons 95% of people fail is not because they lack talent, but because they fall into the deadly trap of comfort. Comfort feels good, doesn't it? The warm bed in the morning, the endless scroll of social media, the idea that tomorrow will be a better day to start. But here's the truth: comfort is the silent killer of dreams. Rim Jhon once said, we must all suffer one of two things: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And sadly, most people choose the easy way out. They escape into comfort today, only to face regret tomorrow. The successful few, the 5%, choose discipline. They choose to wake up early when it's easier to sleep in. They choose to read books when it's easier to binge-watch TV. They choose to invest in growth when others spend mindlessly. And that small difference compounds over time into massive success. Excuses are another poison. How many times have you heard people say, I don't have time, or I don't have the money, or I'll start when the situation is better? These excuses sound reasonable, but in reality, they're lies we tell ourselves to protect our comfort zone. The truth is, you will never have the perfect moment. The perfect time doesn't exist. If you wait for the stars to align, you'll waste your entire life waiting. Think about it: the people who succeed don't have extra hours in the day. They have the same 24 hours you and I do. The difference is in how they use them. Where the majority waste hours on distractions, the minority invest those hours in learning, building, and growing. That's why they eventually stand out while the rest fade away. Let me give you an example. Imagine two friends starting at the same point. One spends 2 hours every evening scrolling, relaxing, avoiding effort. The other spends those same 2 hours reading, learning skills, building something small every day. After 1 week, the difference is small. After 1 year, the difference is enormous. And after 5 years, they are living completely different lives. One wonders, why am I stuck? The other smiles, knowing discipline brought freedom. And here's the harsh reality: life will test you. It will throw challenges at you, it will push you to your limits. If you don't train yourself to step out of your comfort zone now, you won't survive those storms later. Comfort makes you weak, discipline makes you strong. So ask yourself right now, what excuses have you been holding on to? What comfort zone has kept you stuck where you are? Because if you want to be in that 5% who succeed, you must be willing to let go of excuses and embrace discomfort. That's where growth happens. That's where transformation begins. Remember this: the life you want is on the other side of your excuses. The dreams you desire are on the other side of comfort. Don't let small excuses cost you a big future. Step out, push yourself, and build habits that align with your goals. That's how you separate yourself from the crowd. Here's a truth most people never realize: success is not the result of one massive action, it's the result of small, consistent habits repeated every single day. This is where the 95% fail and where the 5% win. Most people dream big but act small, and when they don't see results instantly, they give up. But those who succeed understand that success is built brick by brick, habit by habit. Jim Rohn often said, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day." Think about that for a moment. The difference between success and failure isn't dramatic, it's subtle. It's whether you spend 30 minutes a day learning or 30 minutes a day wasting time. It's whether you invest in your health or ignore it. It's whether you save money or spend recklessly. Over time, these little choices shape your entire destiny. Take this simple example: if you eat a donut every day, it won't make a difference today. But after a year, it adds up. Now flip it: if you exercise for just 20 minutes daily, it won't change much in a week, but in a year you'll be stronger, healthier, and more confident. Small habits compound, whether positively or negatively. The 95% fail because they underestimate this truth. They believe their small actions don't matter. But the 5% succeed because they understand that habits, no matter how small, shape the future. The tragedy is that most people want instant results. They want to go to the gym once and see muscles. They want to work on a business for a week and become rich. They want to read one book and be wise. When they don't see results immediately, they quit. But here's the secret: patience and consistency are the real superpowers. The ones who stick to the small disciplines day after day are the ones who eventually rise above the rest. Think of it like planting a seed. You don't plant it today and expect a tree tomorrow. You water it daily, give it sunlight, protect it from weeds. Slowly, roots grow underground where you can't even see them. Then, one day, it sprouts. Eventually, it becomes a tree. That's exactly how habits work. The majority quit watering too soon, the minority keep going until they see growth. Now, let me ask you, what habits are you practicing daily? Are they pulling you toward your goals, or pushing you away from them? Because every day, with every action, you're either building your future or destroying it. There is no in-between. If you want to be in the top 5%, here's the challenge: pick just one positive habit and commit to it daily for the next 30 days. Whether it's reading 10 pages, exercising, saving money, or practicing gratitude, stick with it. Watch how it changes your mindset. Watch how it builds momentum. And remember, momentum is what carries people to greatness. Here's a hard truth: most people fail not because life is unfair, not because they lacked opportunities, and not because someone else was luckier. They fail because of their mindset. The 95% of people cling to excuses. They blame the economy, their parents, their boss, their past, their lack of resources. But the 5%? They take ownership. They know that while they cannot control everything, they can always control their response, their effort, and their attitude. Jim Rohn once said, "You must take personal responsibility." You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. This is the dividing line between failure and success. The majority spend their lives pointing fingers, waiting for the world to change. The minority change themselves, and by doing so, they change their world. Think about it: when you say, "I can't because of," you give away your power. You hand control of your life to external forces. But when you say, "I will find a way," you step into ownership. And ownership is where transformation begins. Let me give you an example. Two people lose their jobs. The first says, "The system is broken, life is unfair. I can't do anything about it." He stays stuck, bitter, and resentful. The second says, "This is tough, but maybe it's an opportunity to learn new skills or start something of my own." That mindset shift is everything. One sees himself as a victim, the other as a creator. Guess which one joins the 5%? Excuses are easy. Ownership is hard. But here's the reality, life doesn't reward excuses. Life rewards action. Every time you justify your failure with an excuse, you close the door to growth. Every time you take ownership, even when things aren't your fault, you open the door to learning, adapting, and eventually succeeding. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit, excuses feel comforting in the short term. They make you feel safe, like it's not really your fault. But over time, they trap you in mediocrity. Ownership feels heavy at first, because it forces you to admit that your results are your responsibility. But that weight is also your freedom, because if you created the problem, you can also create the solution. The 5% live by this rule, if it's to be, it's up to me. They don't wait for someone to rescue them. They don't hope for a lucky break. They create opportunities by working harder on themselves than on anything else. They look at failures as lessons, setbacks as redirections, and challenges as stepping stones. Now here's the question, which side are you on? Are you in the 95% who cling to excuses, or are you ready to step into the 5% who take full responsibility for their life? Because the moment you stop saying, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I do about it?" that's the moment your life begins to change. Here's a hard truth. Most people fail not because life is unfair, not because they lacked opportunities, and not because someone else was luckier. They fail because of their mindset. The 95% of people cling to excuses. They blame the economy, their parents, their boss, their past, their lack of resources. But the 5%? They take ownership. They know that while they cannot control everything, they can always control their response, their effort, and their attitude. Rim Jhon once said, "You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself." This is the dividing line between failure and success. The majority spend their lives pointing fingers, waiting for the world to change. The minority change themselves, and by doing so, they change their world. Think about it, when you say, "I can't because of," you give away your power. You hand control of your life to external forces. But when you say, "I will find a way," you step into ownership. And ownership is where transformation begins. Let me give you an example. Two people lose their jobs. The first says, "The system is broken, life is unfair. I can't do anything about it." He stays stuck, bitter, and resentful. The second says, "This is tough, but maybe it's an opportunity to learn new skills or start something of my own." That mindset shift is everything. One sees himself as a victim, the other as a creator. Guess which one joins the 5%? Excuses are easy. Ownership is hard. But here's the reality, life doesn't reward excuses. Life rewards action. Every time you justify your failure with an excuse, you close the door to growth. Every time you take ownership, even when things aren't your fault, you open the door to learning, adapting, and eventually succeeding. And here's the truth nobody wants to admit, excuses feel comforting in the short term. They make you feel safe, like it's not really your fault. But over time, they trap you in mediocrity. Ownership feels heavy at first, because it forces you to admit that your results are your responsibility. But that weight is also your freedom, because if you created the problem, you can also create the solution. The 5% live by this rule, if it's to be, it's up to me. They don't wait for someone to rescue them. They don't hope for a lucky break. They create opportunities by working harder on themselves than on anything else. They look at failures as lessons, setbacks as redirections, and challenges as stepping stones. Now here's the question, which side are you on? Are you in the 95% who cling to excuses, or are you ready to step into the 5% who take full responsibility for their life? Because the moment you stop saying, "Why me?" and start asking, "What can I do about it?" that's the moment your life begins to change. If there is one word that separates the 5% from the 95%, it's this: discipline. Jim Rohn used to say, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Think about that for a second. Everyone has goals, everyone has dreams, but not everyone crosses that bridge. Most people just stand on one side, wishing, hoping, and waiting. The 5% are the ones who actually walk across, and they do it through daily discipline. Here's the truth, discipline isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. It's like a muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. But here's why 95% fail, they want motivation to do the work. They wait until they feel like it. But the 5% understand something deeper, motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the fire that keeps burning even when you don't feel like showing up. Jim Rohn said, we must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Let's break that down. The pain of discipline is temporary. Waking up early, saying no to junk food, saving money instead of spending, yes, it's uncomfortable in the moment. But that discomfort passes quickly. The pain of regret? That lasts a lifetime. The regret of wasted time, the regret of missed opportunities, the regret of knowing you could have done more. The 95% choose regret. The 5% choose discipline. Here's what's fascinating, discipline doesn't demand huge changes all at once. It's about the small, consistent habits that compound over time. Reading 10 pages a day may not feel like much, but in a year, that's 3,650 pages, the equivalent of 15 to 20 books. Saving just $5 a day may seem small, but over 10 years with interest, it turns into thousands. Going for a 30-minute walk daily might not transform your body overnight, but in a year, it could add years to your life. Now, here's the harsh reality, the 95% ignore these small habits because they look too ordinary. They think success comes from one big event, a lucky break, a winning lottery ticket, a sudden opportunity. But Jim Rohn taught us that success is boring. Success is hidden in the daily, unglamorous routines that no one else sees. And that's why only 5% reach it. Picture two people. Both want to start a business. One spends all his time daydreaming, watching motivational videos, and making excuses. The other spends 1 hour every day learning, planning, and building, even when no one is watching. After a year, who do you think is closer to success? The answer is obvious. So, here's the key lesson, discipline is freedom. At first, it feels restrictive, like saying no to the things you want right now. But in the long run, it gives you freedom, freedom from debt, freedom from poor health, freedom from regret. The 95% live for comfort today and stay trapped. The 5% sacrifice today to unlock freedom tomorrow. Jim Rohn's most famous line is this, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Stop and really let that sink in. Who are the 5 people you're around the most? Do they push you forward, or do they hold you back? Do they inspire you to dream bigger, or do they pull you into negativity, laziness, and excuses? This is one of the biggest reasons why 95% of people fail. They surround themselves with the wrong circle. They spend hours with people who complain about the economy, who gossip about others, who waste time on distractions, and then they wonder why their life doesn't improve. But the 5%? They are intentional about their associations. They choose mentors, peers, and friends who are going where they want to go, not where they've always been. Jim Rohn used to say, don't join an easy crowd. You won't grow. Go where the expectations and the demands to perform are high. The 95% choose the easy crowd because it feels comfortable. They want people who validate their excuses, who make them feel okay about staying the same. But the 5% seek out circles that challenge them, that make them feel uncomfortable, not because they're rejected, but because they're being stretched. Think of it like this, if you hang out with 4 broke people, you'll be the 5th. If you hang out with 4 lazy people, you'll be the 5th. But if you hang out with 4 disciplined, motivated, successful people, guess what? You'll become the fifth in that group too. That's how powerful environment is. It's invisible, but it shapes everything about your mindset, your habits, and eventually your results. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone trying to quit smoking, but every night he spends time with friends who smoke a pack a day. No matter how strong his willpower is, eventually the environment will pull him back in. On the other hand, if he changes his environment and surrounds himself with health-conscious people, suddenly quitting becomes natural. The environment does the work for him. That's the difference between fighting uphill battles and flowing with momentum. This is why the 5% actively build their circles. They attend seminars. They read books from great minds. They join communities where growth is normal, not optional. They spend time with people who make them feel like their dreams are possible. And here's the truth, sometimes that means leaving old friends behind. Not because you're better than them, but because you're on a different path. And if you don't make that choice, you'll stay stuck where they are. Rim Jhon was clear about this: discipline your disappointment. If you expect everyone to cheer for you, you'll be disappointed. The 95% give up because their friends and family don't support them. The 5% keep going, because they know their future doesn't depend on approval. It depends on alignment. Rim Jhon once said, "You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself." This single idea separates the 95% who fail from the 5% who succeed. The majority of people live in what Jim called the victim mentality. They blame the government, the economy, their boss, their family, their past, even their childhood. And while all those things may be real challenges, blaming them never changes anything. The truth is harsh but liberating: no one is coming to save you. Not the government, not your company, not your friends. If your life is going to change, it's going to change because you took full responsibility for it. The 95% hate this idea because it forces them to give up excuses. The 5% embrace it, because they understand it gives them power. Think about it. If your problems are always someone else's fault, then your future is out of your hands. But if you accept responsibility, suddenly your future is in your control. Rim Jhon would often remind audiences, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. That's the mindset of the 5%. The 95% waste years waiting for perfect conditions. They say, "I'll start working hard when my boss appreciates me." Or, "I'll save money when I earn more." Or, "I'll be happy when life finally gives me a break." But life doesn't work like that. Jim taught that we must work with what we have, where we are, right now. Success isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, it's about learning to sail in the storm. Let's look at an example. Two employees face the same challenge, both lose their jobs unexpectedly. The 95% spend weeks complaining, blaming the company, blaming the economy, blaming the unfair world. They sit idle, waiting for someone to rescue them. The 5% also feel the pain, but instead of complaining, they ask, "What can I do next? What new skills can I learn? How can I turn this setback into an opportunity?" Months later, one is still stuck and bitter, while the other has built a new path forward. The difference isn't in the challenge, it's in the response. Rim Jhon had a phrase: "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." The 95% wish life would become easy. They wish money would come without discipline. They wish health would come without exercise. They wish relationships would thrive without effort. But the 5%? They stop wishing and start working. They understand that strength is built in the struggle, and growth comes through responsibility. Here's the real power of responsibility: it removes limits. If everything depends on others, your growth is capped. But if everything depends on you, your growth is unlimited. That doesn't mean you control everything in life, but it means you control how you respond to everything in life. And that, Jim would say, makes all the difference. Jim Rohn often ended his talks with a truth so sharp it could pierce through excuses: you cannot hire someone else to do your push-ups for you. What did he mean? He meant that no matter how much advice you hear, no matter how many books you read or videos you watch, nothing will change until you decide to take action. We've walked through the rules of success, the mindset shifts, and the habits that separate the 5% from the 95%. But here's the real test: will you just listen and nod, or will you actually take one step forward? Because knowledge without action is wasted potential. The majority of people will hear this message today and do nothing. They'll go back to scrolling, complaining, and waiting for life to magically change. That's why they stay stuck in the 95%. But a few, maybe you, will stop, reflect, and decide, enough is enough. It's time to take charge of my life. And that single decision could be the turning point of your entire story. Jim used to say, "Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Your dreams are waiting on the other side of that bridge. But no one else can walk across it for you. Every day you either build that bridge stronger with your choices, or you let it crumble with excuses. Which will it be?" Here's the beauty of what Jim taught: success is not reserved for the lucky few. It's not about being born rich or talented. It's about adopting principles that work for anyone who's willing to apply them. The 5% aren't superhuman, they're just consistent. They do the little things daily that others avoid, and over time, those little things create extraordinary results. So here's your challenge: starting today, choose one area of your life: your health, your finances, your learning, or your relationships. Take one small, disciplined step toward improvement. Tomorrow, take another. And then another. If you stay consistent, I promise you'll look back in a year and not even recognize yourself. This is not about living a perfect life. It's about living a life on purpose. Stop waiting for motivation to strike. Stop blaming circumstances. Stop playing the victim. The clock is ticking, and every day you wait, the gap between where you are and where you could be grows wider. Remember this: the 95% let life push them around, but the 5% push back. The 95% hope for change, but the 5% become the change. The question is, which one will you be? Fire! If this message hit you today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs a wake-up call. And if you're ready to join the 5% who take action, hit that subscribe button, stay connected, and keep growing with us. Because together, step by step, we can build the kind of life Jim Rohn believed in: a life of discipline, growth, and true freedom. The choice is yours. Stay the same, or step up. Remain in the 95%, or rise into the 5%. And remember Jim's timeless words: if you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree. Glowing star.